Good day everyone. We will discuss about messages. A connection timeout has occurred on a previously established connection to availability replica JBS AG3 with ID, some GUID. Either a networking or a firewall issue exists or the availability replica has transitioned to the resolving role. The other message would be always on availability groups connection with secondary database terminated for primary database JBS wiki on the availability replica JBS AG3 with replica ID, some GUID. This is an informational message only. No user action is required. We will discuss about these two messages and then see what are the scenarios during which we will be seeing these messages. Let's get started. I'll be using this particular environment for this video. JBS AG1, JBS AG2 and JBS AG3 are part of availability group JBS AG, which contains a database added to it called JBS Wiki. And the listener used would be JBS APP. JBS AG1 and JBS AG2 is configured with synchronous commit mode, and JBS AG3 is an asynchronous replica. This availability group basically uses the underlying Windows cluster, JBS Wiki cluster. So now, as far as this environment is concerned, JBS AG1 is the primary replica. So let's log into that. And then if we look at the always on availability dashboard, let me pause it and refresh it here. And if you see here, JBS AG1 and JBS AG2 are configured using synchronous commit, and JBS AG3 is an asynchronous replica, and we have this database called JBS Wiki added to this availability group, that is JBS AG. So what we'll do now is on the primary replica, which is your JBS AG1, I have reinitialized the SQL Server error log using sp_cycle error log. So let's query the error log. And then if you see here, it basically tells the error log has been reinitialized, and then we have this information. We don't see anything else. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into JBS AG3 server, which is your asynchronous replica. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this query to create some sort of a network issue, maybe for close to 60 seconds. And then we will see what would be the what messages and what will happen if this happens. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create this for say 60 seconds. So if you see here, this is running on the 63. So let me start it. So now this is going to freeze in some time. So right now I'm able to see that this time is going on, but now it is freezed. So that means we are having an issue as far as where we'll not be able to ping this JBS AG3 server. So let's try that. Then if you see here, we are not able to ping it. And then let's do the same thing on your primary replica, which is JBS AG1. So if you see here, it's a ping command here as well on the primary replica. And then if you see here, it is basically timing out. Yeah, the request is timed out. So that means we are not able to ping that. So it's gonna come up. That is that network issue, the temporary network issue that we are created is going to last there for close to 60 seconds. So let me add -G and then run it. So that means now we are able to ping it properly. So that means it is okay. So now if I execute this, query this SQL Server error log, what I'm able to see is I'm able to see the messages here, which we will be discussing. So let me copy these two messages. And then if you see here, we are seeing these two messages that we discussed earlier when we started this video. It basically tells a connection timeout has occurred on a previously established connection to availability replica JBS AG3. That is where we created this network issue. It basically tells like either a networking or a firewall issue exists, or the availability replica has transitioned to the resolving role. We know that it has not transitioned to the resolving role. Instead, there was a temporary network issue that we basically created. Yeah, and then what you are seeing, the other message is like always on availability group connection with the secondary database terminated for primary database JBS wiki on the availability replica JBS AG3. So now what we'll do is like we will query the error log again and then see that the message that the connection is established back. If you see here, always on availability groups connection with secondary database established for primary database JBS wiki on availability group JBS AG3, and it is an informational message that we know. Yeah, so we have this information. So as soon as we had this network issue, for example, like the one that we created for this demo, as soon as we had that, we were able to see that we got this message very clearly stating like a connection timeout has occurred. And as soon as the network issue is resolved, we were able to see a message stating like the connection is established back. So let me put that message also so that in case you have any questions, we can have a look. So this one, a connection for availability group with JBS AG1 with ID to JBS AG3 with has been successfully established. So previously, we saw that there was an connection could not be made, and then it told like there is an it could be either networking or a firewall issue. And as soon as the network issue was resolved, or maybe like it was a temporary issue that we created, as soon as that went off, we are able to make a connection. So what we need to understand is like how is always on availability group is managing to perform this. That is like how is it checking and pointing out that there is a network issue. It is not able to make a connection. And then the second one is like as soon as it is able to reach out, how is it able to establish the connection back? How is it able to get that information? Yep. So that we will discuss further. Yep. So all these things are tied to the session timeout value. So when a session timeout occurs between two availability replicas, the availability replica assumes that a failure has occurred and declares a soft error. Failure due to soft error that might cause timeouts or as below, like we have like close to 4 points. So the first one is like network errors such as TCP link timeouts, dropped or corrupt packets, or packets that are not in correct order. Yeah. The next one would be an operating system server or database is not responding. In this case, it's a genuine problem wherein the server is not responding. The other one is like a Windows server timing out. So in our case, whatever demo we did, it is basically the server is online, but the server was basically timing out. We are not able to connect to it, nor we are able to ping to it. Yeah. Or insufficient computing resources such as CPU or disk overload, the transaction log filling up, or the system is running out of memory or threads. In these cases, you must increase the timeout period, reduce the workload, or change the hardware to handle the workload. So if you look at these are the 4 points that is related to the soft errors. Okay, so the session timeout value basically like dictates here when to check for other replicas. And in case if you feel like there is an temporary issue, or if you feel like there is an issue that is going to last long. For example, the network team is basically telling like this temporary network glitch is going to continue on for some months or something, then we can think about changing this session timeout. But session timeout default value, just to make sure like you don't have a problem during the failover, that default value seems to be very good. Now if you change that, then the archivo you will have a problem. So before changing that, you have to be very careful. But just to make sure like this timeout doesn't occur so frequently, what you can do is like you can change the session timeout value. Yeah, the session timeout value essentially protects SQL Server instance from soft errors by avoiding it to indefinitely wait for a response from other replica. Always on availability group uses session timeout mechanism by sending out a ping to all connected replicas at a fixed interval. The replicas ping each other to show that they are still active. If no ping is received from the other replica within the session timeout period, the connection times out and the replica enters the disconnected state. Yeah. So now what we'll do is like we will look at the existing session timeout value. So let's go to the properties of our availability group. Yep. And if you see here you will be able to see that we have the session timeout value set to 10 seconds. So that means like the default value for session timeout is 10 seconds. This message below is basically logged in SQL Server error log usually when no ping is received from the other secondary replica, the one that we discussed here. The connection timeout has occurred on a previously established connection to availability replica JBS AG3. Either a networking or a firewall issue exists, or the availability group has transitioned to resolving state. So this message gets logged into your SQL Server error log when the ping response from one of the replica is not received. That is when you will basically be able to see this message. Okay, so now you can change this value, but you need to understand the risk. Yeah, as far as the RTO is concerned, the recovery time objective. So now we know that. When we are getting this message on the SQL Server error log, for example, at least in our case, we introduced a temporary network issue, and then we were able to see that. But in real world scenario, how do we know like this could be a network issue or a genuine server down issue? So what we can do is like we can try a continuous ping. Yep, so we can perform a continuous ping. Maybe like what we can do is like we can create a file, maybe like a CMD file or a BAT file. So let me show you how do we do that. So let's go to C drive and temp, and then what I'll do here is like I will create a text file, then name it as ping underscore JBS AG1. So let's name it as this, and then we will put the required information. So we can put this command on an BAT file, or what we can do is like we can open an Windows PowerShell, and then we can execute it from here. Yep. So for example, in my case, it is going to be in mere testing. So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to execute it from the PowerShell. But if you feel like this needs to run overnight, so what I would suggest is like to create this command here. And then put it in a BAT file, and then maybe call it from the scheduler, or you can do it from your SQL Server agent as well. Yeah. So, but here, what I'm going to do is like I'm going to start it from the PowerShell. So what it will basically do is like it will continuously ping these two servers, JBS AG2 and JBS AG3, and then writes the information onto this particular text file. Okay, so what we basically have to do is like on JBS AG1, we need to continuously ping AG2 and AG3. On JBS AG2, we have to continuously ping JBS AG1 and JBS AG3. And on JBS AG3, we will have to ping JBS AG1 and AG2 on a production server. But in our case, we know like the problem is going to happen on JBS AG3 because we are the one who is basically creating this issue. So in this case, I'm not going to run on other servers. Yeah. So if you see here, I'm going to create it now, the temporary issue. Yep, drop, and it is going to be 100%. Okay, so now let's start it, and then let me start it here. So if you see here, this is like going on here, and once it freezes, we know like there is a problem. So it is freeze now, waiting for 55 seconds. So now we know that the problem is there on JBS AG3. So let's wait for this thing to complete. Yeah, so maybe like let's wait for this issue to auto resolve after 60 seconds, I say. So let's ping it, and then once we see that the server is pinging back, what we'll do is like we will stop the um, ping command, the continuous ping that is happening on JBS AG1, and then we'll look at the output there. Yep, so it is still timing out. So if you see here, it is pinging now. Now let's stop this by pressing a Control C. So now let's go to the temp folder, and then let's look at these two files. So JBS AG2, we know like everything is okay. So let's do a Control F and then check for request. So there is nothing there. We know that JBS AG2 is all okay. But if you look at JBS AG3, let's look at it. And then if you see here, we are able to see that it is timing out, and the timeout is between 3:43 to close to 3:44. So that means like close to 1 minute 60 seconds. We were not able to ping the server. So that means like it would have tried, the session timeout is set at 10. So 6 times you would have basically got a message that this JBS AG3 is not present. Okay, now what we'll do is like let's run this error log and then see when did we get this message for the first time. Okay, so this one basically tells like it is able to connect to that replica. Okay, so if you see here, it basically tells like successfully established. Okay, 346. So if you see this one, you're able to see that it started around 3:43. Okay, so if you see here, we are able to see that around 3:44:07, we are able to see this message. A connection timeout has occurred on a previously established connection. So this is when we got it. So 3:44:07. Okay, and if you see here, we basically like 3:58 it basically started. Okay, so 10 seconds from here is basically 3:44:08. Yeah, but if you see here, it is like 3:44:07 we got this message. So the session timeout value of 10 seconds was able to understand like there is an problem with JBS AG3 because it is not getting the ping response back, and then we got this message. So this way we are able to clearly understand like the dependency as far as this message with the session timeout, because session timeout is responsible for this message to be displayed on the SQL Server error log. Yep. So this way we will be able to understand that there is a problem, like the server is not down, but you're not able to ping the server. So that means like there seems to be some network issue. With these details, networking team can be contacted to understand the reason why there are ping drops. Yeah, it could be due to a temporary network issue or some VM level backups happening. Root cause and fix will be required from the platforms or networking team. In the meantime, you can increase the session timeout value to a higher value. Increasing the value controls how many seconds that an availability replica waits for a ping response from a connected replica before considering the connection to have failed. By default, we know that it is set to 10 seconds, and we can increase it to a different value. But again, default values are there for a reason. Yeah, so you increase this, there is high possibility it can increase your recovery time objective, because what happens is like if you increase the value, you are basically delaying the issue. For example, if it is a real server down issue, and then if the session timeout is increased, then there is high possibility the detection is going to be delayed. So that is something that we need to be very, very careful. The best solution here would be to request the platforms or the networking team to understand what is happening, and then understand the root cause for this issue, and then try resolving it. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Jai Hind.